fan podcast exploring the vast worlds of He-Man and She-Ra. Join Sean Scavarna and Matthew Duke as they discuss the history and mystery of Eternia and Etheria, diving deep into all incarnations of Masters of the Universe.
Hey, you know who's back? It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Now that you know, let's go get ready for the show. It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Sit back and enjoy the ride right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to L.O.G on MYP. This is the mini-series where Matthew Duch and Curtis Ackerman go through each and every episode of the Mike Young Productions He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2002 series, episode by episode. And we are currently on episode 8, Siren Song. Before we get into that, Curtis, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Yourself?
I am wonderful. I am ready to jump back in. We're just coming off Lessons, right? Your highest rated episode thus far. You gave it the 3 Power Sword rating.
It was really good. Yep.
Yeah, we're about a third of the way through season 1 here. So yeah, definitely excited for this one. Before we get into the episode itself, let's get the important details up here. Like I said, this is the 8th episode of the Mike Young Productions. It was written by William Forrest Cluverius, directed by Gary Hartel, and it originally aired on October 18th, 2002. I believe the only first appearance we have this episode is of Circe, the mysterious siren. I was going to look up William Forrest Cluverius because that name sounds familiar to me for some reason.
No idea.
Yeah, it's one of those odd ones where it's like... yeah. Yeah, it looks like he did a lot of cartoon work during this time. X-Men Evolution, the Jackie Chan Adventures, the Mummy animated series. Yeah, What's New Scooby-Doo. Yeah, lots of cartoon series around this time. So.
That's probably where you know him from, is the What's New Scooby-Doo.
Probably.
You seem like a very What's New Scooby-Doo fan.
I don't know if I've ever seen that one. I don't know. All Scooby-Doo is kind of Scooby-Doo to me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Definitely watch Jackie Chan Adventures, and I still think X-Men Evolution is the best X-Men animated series to this date. So,
all right.
All right. So let's get into the episode. We start off with a training sequence, which we've seen quite a bit already, but this time we got Prince Adam and Teela training with Man-at-Arms in the Evergreen Forest, short ways away from Castle Grayskull.
It's interesting that you mentioned that we get another training sequence, because now that I think about it, I don't remember too many, if any, in Filmation, but you're right. There's been a lot in this series so far.
There would definitely be some, like, usually Adam and Teela.
Yeah. But we've had, like, Man-at-Arms, like, basically training He-Man and training at, like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even in the beginning, before He-Man's, even introduced, the first time we meet Adam and Teela, they're training on the Sky Discs.
Right.
So, definitely, I guess with Filmation, it probably just seems like that because, again, 130 episodes.
Right.
Whereas, again, we're very serialized here. And with us doing this rewatch the way we're doing it, it's really making me realize how... it's got to be intentional at this point. How much of season 1 is about training and growing into the man you're going to become? I don't think it necessarily hit me as consciously as it has during this rewatch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely paying attention to more of the details. I'll get into one of those later on in the episode here, but there's stuff that normally just through a regular watch through I probably wouldn't pick up but
Right.
because I'm trying to take notes and give it a good review and assessment and stuff, there's definitely stuff that I'm picking up that I wouldn't normally. So it's an interesting way to watch it for sure.
Absolutely. So their training gets interrupted as Man-at-Arms realizes that Skeletor and now his forces are attacking Castle Grayskull. And Curtis, this is what you want to see back in lessons here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, now Skeletor's on the same page as you now. He failed with the Ram Stone.
The only problem is now he's lost the element of surprise, you know?
Right. Unfortunately,
yeah.
Man-at-Arms happened to be right there with a nice binocular attachment to his mace. So
yeah, I mean, if he would have done it in the last episode, like, I don't think that the Masters picked up on the fact that Skeletor knew that Grayskull was important.
Yeah.
Until last episode.
Right.
You know, and even, I mean, we'll see later on in this episode, I don't even know that the Masters understand that Grayskull is important.
Not as much. I mean, they questioned it last episode, but yeah, they haven't really gotten into it. But
yeah.
So Man-at-Arms, Tila, and Adam race off. Adam chooses to go left instead of right. Man-at-Arms tells Tila they'll head on ahead.
I thought that was a nice little like this is how I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna say, oh no, left is faster.
Right. Like just
okay.
If it was one of his more natural ones, especially in this series.
Yeah.
My only complaint about that is, and it's more an animation oversight, I think, is when Man-at-Arms and Tila get to the Blaster Hawks, there should have been a third Blaster Hawk there that they left behind.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that. But
there was that's my mind. The way it works is like they jump into the only two Blaster Hawks and take off. But like, wait, how will Adam catch up then? Like,
unless maybe there was well, yeah, that's true. I was gonna say maybe he rode with one of them on the way there, but yeah,
which
he's
is
not
why
gonna be able to catch up without another one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we're fine with it because we know he's going to change into He-Man and Battle-Cat's faster than a Blaster Hawk, but I keep calling that the wrong name too. Blaster Hawk is the vintage vehicle. Battle Hawk is the yellow ones in this series.
Gotcha.
It really should have just named it the Blaster Hawk.
I mean, it's a hawk.
It's a hawk, whatever. And it blasts. Like, use the vintage name. This is how you lose copyrights.
But it's a hawk, and they go into battle with it. So you know.
Yeah. I just know someone's gonna be like that. That's not what it's called, Matt. As while en route, obviously we do see Adam transform to He-Man. Him and Battle-Cat head off, and Man-at-Arms calls in the other Masters to help out. As they're en route, they again, like you said, coming from the previous episode, they're still questioning kind of what is the point. Like, why does anybody give a shit about this pile of bricks?
Yeah, especially Buzz-Off. Buzz-Off seems very confused by why Grayskull is so important because it's just a pile of stones, which is what I've got under my name there. It's just a pile of stones.
And I like that they're, you know, almost, excuse me, almost how like Orko's usually like, you know, that's supposed to be like the child character, like your gateway character into the world. I like how they're playing Buzz-Off in this series where the Masters, most of them are like Captain Randor's like top dudes, and then there's some they picked up along the way, but like Manny Faces, he's been there since the beginning of the series.
Right.
I like how Buzz-Off, they use him as the new guy. Like he's not
as the kind of, he's still getting used to everything and they don't know quite how to take him yet. And
well, even he's like, wait, why are we just blindly like, I'm cool with you guys. I agree we're all on the same side, but like this doesn't make sense. Like, why are we doing this? And so it allows them to naturally open up some exposition that would normally feel very forced and clunky. And I like how they're properly utilizing him throughout. I mean, it's been 4 episodes since he's actually been introduced. So it would have been very easy to fall into the just like, oh, Buzz-Off's one of the guys now. Let's go. And he's still kind of like, now wait a minute here. So
I mean, they're utilizing that character for storytelling elements, and it makes sense and it feels natural. And yeah, I think it's interesting how they're doing it.
So we get a nice big battle around Grayskull. I love this battle. This is one of my favorite in the series, especially thus far.
Real quick before
Yeah.
we get to that, just as the masters are flying towards it, I really love just the visual of Ram Man on the sky sled. Like that's just it's very filmation-y to me. And yeah, just having him swooping in on a sky sled, it's like, yes, okay. Like I'm excited. Where's this going? So yeah, I think him
Now
and
I'm trying to
I
think
want to
if
say
this
Manny Faces were on sky sleds.
they are. I'm trying to think. Is this our first appearance of Sky Sleds?
It might be. I don't know.
I think it is. We had the Wind Raider already. I think this is the first episode with the Sky Sleds in
Is
it.
that one scene they've got them flying,
Mhm.
and I think you've got Stratos and Buzz off just flying normally. There is a Battle Hawk there, but I'm not sure who's in it. And then there's two sky sleds, one with Ram Man and one with Manny Faces.
No, I completely agree. They're on Sky Sled.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the other episodes, trying to remember if it's first appearance or
I
not.
just think it's cool, like that they have the variety there. Like it's not, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, a couple different vehicles and some guys that are flying on their own, and yeah.
And I really love. I mean, I love the vintage Sky Sled, but I really love the 2008 upgrade on it with them adding the actual seat in the back. It looks much more like a practical vehicle. Almost kind of like the Road Ripper mixed with a Sky Sled. So, but really well done. And yeah, I love it. And even when he gets to the battle and he like just kind of plummets off and goes down head first, slamming into the ground. Like, no,
I was wondering on that, like does the Sky Sled have some sort of autopilot feature where it was able to land on its own, like because he just jumps off and like headbutts him basically, but what happens to the Sky Sled then? Does it crash land, or does
it's got to have an auto park, like the Dead Man switch, like when you get off the riding lawnmower and it just stops, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, this is one of my favorite battles in the series, especially thus far. Everyone looks great. The early spinny weapon issues are gone, and we're just in battle. I love how they're fighting in the abyss on the side of Grayskull. I love the shots you get where you see like the side wall of Grayskull going down to all the rocks. I like that they made the abyss not just a straight drop down to nothingness. How there is some platforms that they're battling on, but at the same time you've still got the pit there, so you've got that kind of danger, but there's some cool platforms to play off of. It's a great sequence in my opinion.
Well, and I wanted to get to the next part, which is kind of so He-Man shows up, and Man-at-Arms calls for something they call the Triad Formation. Now this makes it seem, we haven't seen this yet, but it makes it seem as if Man-at-Arms, He-Man, and Teela have trained together because they all know what this Triad Formation is. And then they blast at the evil warriors, who then seemingly just drop into the abyss what looks like to kill them. like I'm sitting there watching this and I'm like, did they just murder all the evil warriors? And it just so happens that they've got, like, you know, I guess, are they griffins? Is that
Griffins?
What it is? Griffins that are just happen to be down there waiting to catch them. And they fly up in the air. But like, it didn't appear as though Man-at-Arms knew that. So it's like, did they just try to kill all the evil warriors? Yeah.
No, there are stakes in this universe. They are playing for keeps, and that's one of the things I really like that the series does, and we'll definitely get into it next episode. Spoiler alert, but like they do a good line of making sure it's I don't really like to use the word mature, but like there are stakes to these battles.
I mean, they're not killing off the characters,
but they're not.
But yes, it is a more serious fight. It's not just the goofy, you know. Yeah.
most people will be like, and we've gotten into this, like, oh, we need a Masters movie to be R-rated because we need to see violence and we need to see gore, we need to see blood.
Right.
And I think, and I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think this series does a good job of letting you know there's stakes, having there be damage, but not having to be like, oh, and then He-Man comes out and he's got blood streaming down his face.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be gory, but
Right.
there has to be some sort of emotion built into it, some sort of tension.
Yep.
Like to where when they blast that and they just drop in the abyss, you're like, oh crap.
Right.
Like did they just die? And then all of a sudden they swoop up. It's like, okay, all right.
Right. They're fine, but they were willing to end this.
But as a viewer, you're going through that emotion of it where, what you're saying is like, it is more important. It's not just, it's not the like Bugs Bunny, the bomb blows up in your face and then you just have like the black powder on your face. Like this is, more
and it
serious
allows
than
me, especially even at the time, I will say older, but I was in high school. So it allowed me at the time to actually feel like, okay, I can't just assume that these battles are going to end okay.
Yeah.
Like, and we've seen that there has been destruction there. It took them multiple episodes to rebuild the palace. Like, we've seen Marlena was tended to wounded workers at the palace in the first episode.
Well, we saw He-Man turned to stone in the last episode. And
Right.
we're like, well, crap. Like, and he didn't know. Like, even the sorceress was worried that was going to, like, he doesn't know the limit of his powers, and I think even sorceress was kind of worried. So it makes us worried.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that really helps me, especially as an older viewer, to actually be able to be like, okay, there are some stakes here. And watching it for the first time, which is quick story. The first time we watched this, because I've talked about it before, me and my buddy Nick and some of our other friends, we would always get together. It originally was Friday nights when this aired on Toonami. We would always get together and watch it. I forget what was happening, but we ended up running late getting back to his apartment. Nick was a couple years older than me, so he had already graduated and he had his own apartment. That's usually where we go to watch. And we were a few minutes late getting back to his apartment that night, and so I didn't see the training sequence until I watched it, the rerun, the second time that it aired. Because we ended up coming in like right during this beginning battle is when we got in the door. So.
Gotcha.
All right. So we got the battle at Grayskull. They successfully ward off the evil warriors in Skeletor. And this is now when they decide that it is time to tell the Masters why exactly this is important and why they should be willing to lay their lives on the line for it.
Which, it's a running theme of this show that irritates the piss out of me because I get frustrated when I watch shows and it's like, if these people would just talk to one another, if they would just be honest with one another, most of their problems would go away. And that's a thing throughout this with the tension between Adam and Teela. And, we'll talk a little bit more between Teela and the sorceress in the next episode. And this thing, like, why was it important to keep this secret from the Masters? Like, I get not wanting them to know He-Man is Adam. Okay, I don't agree with it, but at least I understand it. But why wouldn't you tell the Masters that Grayskull is important and needs to be protected? Like, if Man-at-Arms isn't there to do that, or He-Man isn't there to do that, none of them know that's important. So if they're busy doing something else, Grayskull is completely open. Like, I just don't get why you wouldn't have done that before this moment. It's cool that they use it as a story element to let them know at this point that it's important, but I just don't understand why you waited. So,
well, if we look at the timeline, and I hear what you're saying, I completely get it. I can rationalize this in my mind. Let's see if we can rationalize it for you. If we look at the timeline, so the Masters were called in to defend Castle Grayskull from the giant mutated Chorodite enhanced fish.
Right.
Since then, this is the first time that they've been called in. This is actually where last episode, with it only being Skeletor versus He-Man, actually
Mhm.
works in this story point's favor, because
Mhm.
He-Man was able to successfully defend it from Skeletor. The Masters hadn't defended it from Skeletor yet. The heroes didn't even know that
Well,
Skeletor was
they had to
what
defend it from the big fish, but
from the
you're
big
right, not from
fish.
Skeletor.
And the evil warriors hung in the background and watched, and they
Right.
reported back to Skeletor, who then concluded that that's got to have something to do with the Elder's disappearance.
Right.
But from Man at Arms' perspective, it was just a random mutated flying fish. Merman wasn't even there at that point, much to our lament. Then He-Man was the one who took on Skeletor. Man at Arms wasn't there for that. So this
Mhm.
is the first time where it's like, okay, Skeletor's on to where Man at Arms is sitting there going, Skeletor's on to Grayskull, and he's not gonna let up. So now we need to let everyone in on this secret.
I
And
get
until
I
then, I think real quick, I think even in Man at Arms' mind, he might have been like, especially after the fish, he's like, he's probably still operating under the less people know about Grayskull, the better. Like, we need to keep this secret from it getting the Skeletor. And now is the point where he's like, okay, they're gonna keep coming. We need to let these guys in on it. Maybe it's too late, but Man at Arms in this series is heroically flawed.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just it feels a little too late to me. It's like, you know, if you've got friends that are supposed to help you, that you would expect to help you defend this thing and protect this thing, but you don't tell them about it until after it gets attacked. Like, that's too late. Like, you should have told them about it beforehand.
He
So
probably should have.
and yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, like you said, he's not a perfect person. Maybe he should have told him before this. Um, I don't know. Just that one, any kind of secrets that lead to bad things rub me the wrong way, because it's like, man, if you guys would just talk to one another, if you would just be honest with one another, none of this shit would be happening.
Yeah.
So
We'll definitely get into it in later episodes in the series. But, you know, classically, I am not a huge Man-Arms fan. Like, I feel he's very important to the mythos and the story, but he's not one of my personal favorites. But I gotta say, I feel like this Man-at-Arms is my favorite iteration. And I think a lot of it,
because he's more human.
because he's more human. He's not just the, well, actually, I don't, and he's always got the
Right.
right answer.
Yeah.
Like, he actually feels like a person here who, especially with Tila being on the younger side in this series,
Yeah.
you know, like he's literally me right now, trying to raise a teenage daughter and perform at the job. But on top of that, like, his daughter like crosses over into his job, like, so yeah, it
I
just,
get it. I mean, maybe it's like PTSD on my part. You know, just being married all these years, like, it's, you know, you get that thing where, like, when your wife tells you that things are fine,
yeah,
but you know it's not fine.
right,
I actually call that with my wife. We call it the nothing game. So I'll ask her
right,
what's wrong, and she says nothing. And it's like, it's clearly not nothing. It's something,
yep,
but you're not telling me. And we could work on this together and fix it if you would tell me what it is, but you're not. And that's why this kind of stuff bothers me. It's like, just talk to one another. Like, holy cow, there's so many of these things that you could be much better at and much stronger as a unit, as a master's unit, if you guys would just be honest with one another. And, you know, fast forward to, like, you know, Revolution and Revelation and stuff, we see that where it's like, you
now
know, then
that's,
we see like kind of the downfall of that, and it's like, wow, why didn't you just tell us ahead of time? Like, now we're angry, now we're, you know, pissed and this and that. And
yeah,
yeah,
if you're going like down the different timelines, I don't know if you watch Community, but there's like Darkest Timeline and everything.
Yeah.
So, but like, yeah, Revolution, it's like the darkest timeline, like effect of the secrets. Like, this is the worst it can possibly go. I don't feel this timeline's quite there, but
no,
I think we're gonna loop back to this discussion next episode, though. So
I did feel like as he goes through the explanation with the masters, though, I love the part where he's explaining it to him, and like there's like this pause, and then Buzzoff said something to the effect of, it still looks like a pile of stones or
Right.
something. And then, and then Ram Man's like, well, it's not. Don't you listen? Like,
Right.
like he's the expert now when he just was told at the same time as Buzz Off, but just the little air of arrogance from Ram Man on something that he just found out.
Well, and I like that Ram Man there, and we get to the crux of the episode here, where Ram Man is definitely looking down on Buzz Off a bit, and he's definitely not. And I like that they're playing Ram Man as this extremely loyal guy to the point where like he's distrusting a Buzz Off because he's the new guy, like, and like you've really got to like once you prove yourself to Ram Man, he's gonna be your best friend and he will die for you.
Yeah.
But until that point, you're an outsider. And
it's like you got to make your way into his inner circle, which is difficult. But once you're in, you're in.
Right.
Yeah.
But I like that, and I like that friction. I like I said during Sky War, I like that Buzz Off and Strauss didn't just mean we're like, you look heroic, you look heroic. Let's be best friends.
Right.
Like,
yeah, you fly, I fly.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that they're earning these relationships.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so Ram Man wants everybody to swear a loyalty oath. Buzz Off is not down with the oaths.
Mm-hmm.
And He-Man steps in and is like, hey, it's cool. We all know we're all on the same side. Let's all keep a level head. Which I found amusing. I never thought about before this watch through for some reason, but I'm like, okay, Buzz Off they just met, but like they only met He-Man like 2 days before that.
Right.
So like, I don't know.
I mean, I guess the difference would be that at one point, Buzz Off was basically said, I don't need anything to do with the Masters.
Right.
And then there was the whole, we went through the episode where, him and Stratos and their factions were basically like, going head to head, getting ready to like kill each other because Skeletor was manipulating them. So there may be some leftover tension from that as well. Whereas so far, He-Man has been nothing but helpful in working with them and saving their asses and all this kind of stuff. So maybe that contributes to it a little bit, but you're right. Both of them are new, but one is accepted with open arms and the other one's kind of like, who's this guy? Like, yeah. So.
I was just hoping it wasn't like Eternian Andreted, like
maybe. Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe. Well, so then we end up back at Snake Mountain.
Yep.
And Skeletor's a little upset. And he's dressing him down. And then we get Dumb Clawful with his dumb voice basically saying like, well, you were there too. And with his stupid voice, and Skeletor blasts him.
It was at least a stupid. It was still. I'm never going to argue with you that it's a stupid voice. But at least in this episode, it's fun. I find myself watching Clawful more and more, and I think just because of your rightful criticisms of him. But I'm like, he had a really badass fight with Mechaneck where he almost freaking snapped his neck, like where Mechaneck's like, oh, I'm gonna need an adjustment. There's like sparks coming out, like, and then it's a stupid voice, but the way he talks back to Skeletor is, well, you were there too, like, that's kind of got a bit of a backbone where I'm like, okay, I could get down with this kind of Clawful
here.
There's a couple
times where they do that in this series. I mean, Evelyn's the biggest one. Like she says smart comments to Skeletor all the time, but there's a few times throughout the series where these evil warriors are kind of snapping back at Skeletor a little bit, but then he will put them in their place really quick. Like he doesn't put up with that.
But just definitely want to point out, like, I could get down with this Clawful for the rest of the series rather than a Clawful we get.
I would just rather he keep his mouth shut. The animation looks great. If he keep his mouth shut, I'd be good. So
So and Skeletor luckily comes up with a plan through a little nudging from Evelyn to try and convince the Masters that they have a traitor in their ranks. If
that's
they can...
so great. Like I think this series is kind of where Evelyn starts to evolve. Like we really saw that culminate in, you know, Revolution.
Yes.
But this is really where it starts, where, you know, you're finding out that a lot of times Evelyn is the brains behind what's going on the evil warrior side. And, you know, either she's assisting Skeletor or she's flat out coming up with the ideas and he's just taking them. So.
No, I completely agree. It's definitely set the groundwork for what Evelyn has become. And it's done well here. So basically they come up with the idea to convince the Masters that they have a traitor in their ranks. The way they're going to do that is to actually mind wash somebody to actually betray them.
And I think it's interesting how they try to do it, because the easiest one to do would be Buzz Off, because they're already kind of skeptical and he's the newer guy and this and that. But they decide they're going to go after the most loyal one that they can think of.
Right.
And turn him, because that'll really tear them apart.
Right. Same thing. Right. Like Ram Man's so loyal, as we've shown here, that if they can put that seed of doubt to where, like, if we can't trust Ram Man, who can we trust?
Right.
Which
I just think that's really smart, because there was the kind of the low hanging fruit there, and they skipped that and we're like, no, we've got a better plan.
Yeah.
You know, Ram Man's a better plan. It's just more methodical and psychological, and I dig that, because there was just definitely an easier way to go with the story, and I like that they chose a harder path. So
yeah, I guess my only critique, I guess I could say, and this is just kind of me personally, is I kind of wish they hadn't been so outright about it. I wish there had been a bit more of a mystery for us as the audience
on who they were going to do it with.
Right, where they're going, ooh, we should get somebody to betray them. And then go into the scenes with the Immobilizer where we don't know who they're turning, because then you obviously have Buzz Off.
Right. That would have been cool mystery. Yeah.
So yeah, we got Buzz. And you could play around with that a little bit more. You could have, obviously, Buzz Off's like the big one, so big and obvious that he's obviously the red herring. But then you could kind of play around with everybody a little bit and be like, you know, who is it? Type of thing.
It would have even been cool too, like if they didn't show us how they turned them,
right?
Because it could have been that, you know, it didn't have to necessarily be that they put a spell on somebody. It could be that they convinced somebody to actually switch to their side, and we wouldn't know. Like, yeah, that would have been a neat way to do it. The other thing that kind of bugged me about this part was, like, if Evelyn could mind control somebody and get them to do whatever she wanted, why are we just now seeing this? And, you know, why do we not see this for basically the rest of, you know, the series and stuff? It's such a unique power, and really, like, if you could do it, if that's a power that you had before they have a chance to adjust to it, spoiler alert, why wouldn't you like go after He-Man? Right. Like, if you could control He-Man, like, you know, then you could do anything. So
yeah, it's funny.
You know, you gotta suspend your belief or imagination or whatever for a second and just kind of go from there.
It's just one of those things where going into this episode, and I've been rewatching them as we've been going. I haven't been jumping ahead.
Yeah, same.
Rewatching it, I'm remembering. I'm like, I don't have many great feelings about Siren Song. And then I start up the episode. I'm like, no, this is jamming here. Like, this is a really good episode. And then I get to this part, and this is where, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, because from here on out, it almost feels rushed. Whereas, like you said, if we could have taken out this whole thing about showing how Ram Man's turned, like, we could have opened the door for more interesting things. But yeah, so now we're introduced to the Immobilizer.
Before that, like, are you talking? Does that happen before Ram?
Yeah, and then Ram Man goes fishing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so we're shown the Immobilizer, which is this awesome device that can freeze any person.
No, I think you're wrong. I think because he went fishing and then he comes back and they're telling him about the Immobilizer.
Maybe,
right? Yeah, because he's fishing, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So, like, they just had this huge battle, and the first thing he does is go fishing. And so then he comes back.
He's actually who taught Adam to fish.
Yeah.
Canonically.
So he comes back to the palace, and everybody that was just in that battle is kind of surrounding Man-at-Arms, and he's showing them this thing. And it's
You're right. I was thinking
Ram Man went off by himself,
and then he
to fish
disappears.
while everybody else is doing that. It's like,
and then he disappears again when the immobilizer goes missing.
And not only that, but he fishes in his whole gear, like his whole Ram Man gear with the helmet and everything. Like it's just like sitting in a boat fishing in Ram Man gear.
So Ram Man goes fishing. He gets swept to the shore by a wave where he's confronted by this green-skinned lady named Cersei, who says she's the lady of the lagoon. She sings a song and puts Ram Man under a spell and literally spells out for us what's happening. She's like, I'm going to sing my song. You're going to do whatever I want you to, and you're not going to remember it afterwards.
Right.
And that is where it's like, that kind of takes all the air out of it for me, because now everything that happens is just methodical. We already know that Ram Man is unwilling. We know he's not going to remember. Like there's just it takes all the intrigue out of it for me.
Yeah.
Whereas if the immobilizer had just gone missing and Ram Man's like, I was fishing. Wait, was I fishing? Like, and now you're like, wait a minute here. What's going on?
Well, like even they show like the one. Well, this is later, so never mind. I'll wait to talk. Well, no, I'll like there's one part where they show like his muddy boots, and he looks over at him like he's confused why his boots were muddy, but we know like there's no to us. So for us there's no mystery to why does he have muddy boots. So I get what you're saying. And
that's something they could, again, if they'd taken out these lake scenes, literally just telling us the plot, then you could have done, maybe Buzz Off is like, did I leave that door open? Like, oh, didn't. Why was he out the door?
Yeah,
and then Ram Man with the boots,
and then somebody framing Ram Man, like you know, like that. Yeah, there could be all kinds of different things.
Mechaneck has a moment where he's like, oh, what, you know, and we're all like, wait, which one is it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically he gets back from fishing. Man-Arm shows him the immobilizer, which is this amazing technological device that can freeze any man, woman, child, person, thing, magic user, anything, everything in its tracks.
Which the evil warriors are seeing because, once again, Triclops has this little Doomseeker there that can see everything, and nobody ever notices it.
Right.
So,
well, I like that the first thing Skeletor's like, I need this. And Triclops goes, well, I can build you one. So, like, kind of on the same lines of Cersei and the mind control powers, like, wait, if we can just build these willy-nilly, like, why isn't everybody just building these constantly and trying to see who can be the last one with moving forces? Like, but we do see the Bashing Beetle completed finally, which they were working on in previous episodes.
Yeah, I did like on that part, though, that Skeletor's like, yeah, I probably could build one, but why build one when you could steal one? You know?
Right.
It's like it is a lot easier. It's less work.
Oh, I love that line from Skeletor. Yeah. It's great, Skeletor. But again, I need a reason why they can't do this again. Like if there'd been like it runs off a Carium crystal, and there's only, you know, we could only get one of these every, you know, whatever, 25 years or what. Okay. Like, just give me something that's, like, limited about it. Yeah. Otherwise, again, it's like, why aren't we just doing this all the time?
Right.
But yeah, so Ram Man ends up, like you said, there's a storm. We see the muddy boots. The immobilizer has gone missing. Ram
Man, like, he's like got his arms around Buzz Off and basically.
Oh yes, he takes down Buzz Off. I love that scene. Show how big Ram Man really is, especially against Buzz Off.
Buzz Off's not small either, but he picks him up like he's nothing, and and Buzz Off doesn't see who it is. He just knows that it's somebody big.
Right.
Yeah.
And then finally, the next morning when they realize immobilizer is missing, they know that they're only the people in this room knew about it, and it's got to be one of the masters. Dun dun. Oh wait, yeah, we know it is.
We already know.
They explained all that. Yeah. Like, see, that's the thing for me. It's like all the scenes are written like it's supposed to be some big like, you know. So it's, I don't know.
So immediately Ram Man points fingers at Buzz Off.
Right.
And, they start getting into it. He-Man has to separate them, which nobody questions why all of a sudden He-Man just is there. But
Something's
whatever.
wrong.
Yeah, whatever. And then, there's a line there where they talk about, something about don't be throwing out unproven accusations. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, aren't all accusations unproven? Like, that's what an accusation is. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you don't know, but you're accusing somebody. Like, you don't have but
see, and
anyway.
again, this is a lot more fun conversation if we don't know who it is, where we're sitting there going like, no, maybe it is Buzz Off, maybe it is Ram. Even just between the two of them, like, us not knowing would make all these conversations hit a lot harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then Ram Man heads out.
Well, one more thing.
Yeah.
The line that Buzz Off says something to the effect of like, it's usually the one that's pointing a finger that's the guilty party or something. And to me, like, what I heard in my head was, he who smelt it dealt it. That's what I heard him saying to Ram Man, basically.
Absolutely. So Ram Man heads out of the palace. He's got the immobilizer with him, and he is witnessed giving it to Cersei.
Yep.
Dun dun dun.
But this time, Adam and Tila see it.
Yes.
So
for the big revelation. So
they go back and they tell everybody, and he walks in as they're telling, and he just hears his name.
Mm-hmm.
We go from there.
Yep. So. And so he is going to be brought up on a court-martial for betraying the Masters.
So then they put him in a cell.
Yep.
And at this point, now it spoiler alert, turns, I mean, you should have watched this episode before you listen to this, but spoiler alert, it turns out that they know that it's not Ram Man, and they figured out there's something going on. But as he's sitting in his cell, I'm sitting there going, okay, so you put this guy that can bash things with his head in a cell and left him his helmet, his gear, his everything. I'm like, why not just give him a blaster too? Like, give him the key to the cell
He's
door.
Got a key
like,
sitting
you
there
know what I'm saying? Like you're just going to leave him with all of his equipment, but it makes sense, based on how this goes. But at the time I was like, this is just odd that you would throw him in a cell, but leave him his helmet so he can go right through the wall. So, which is what he does.
And I forgot to mention earlier, but with Cersei, because even I am, talking about it, want to keep it a secret, but right after Cersei's done with Ram Man for the first time, we see her change into Evelyn. So we know it's just an Evelyn disguise.
Yes.
Like, they don't even leave that as like, who is this? Like,
it's not like they
leave no mystery.
Somebody that's working with them. We already know that it's Evelyn. Right.
Right. Exactly.
I did forget to mention something too. Before they take Ram Man away, like when that whole thing is going on, you see, and it's just a quick moment, but you see Man at Arms reach down and grab this chip off the table and grabbed it. And like at the time, we don't know what this is, but you see him grab like this little like microchip. So.
Oh wow! I didn't catch that on the rewatch. So
yes, he reaches down. So like after they know that the immobilizer has been taken, all this and that, he reaches down and grabs his chip and puts it in his pocket. And I'm like, what is that for? Yeah, that comes up later. So
yeah. So then we got Skeletor. He's checking in on everything. He sees that Ram Man's been court-martialed. He's locked up, and he feels this is the time to spring the full trap. Now that they have the immobilizer, and they call Ram Man to the forest with the other Masters following the escaped convict.
Yeah.
Once they get there, excuse me,
they basically confront Skeletor and start charging towards him, but Skeletor's got the immobilizer, so he starts taking them out. Yeah.
And then this is where Curtis's catch pays off.
Yeah, because then they basically explain to him that they have a defense against it, that they've got this chip basically that protects them against the immobilizer, and so even though they thought they had froze, what was it? It was Man-at-Arms and somebody that was running up the hillside. Who was the other one? Was it Mechaneck?
It might have been.
There's two people running up the hillside, and he had shot at them, and they acted as if they were frozen.
Right. Which is great acting, by the way. Like running uphill, they're like
right in their tracks up the hill. Yeah.
I mean, those guys, their core muscles are amazing.
Yeah. So, and so as this plays out, I go, okay, like now I'm thinking back, and I go, okay, so Man-at-Arms grabbed that chip before they put Ram Man in the cell. So he knew at that point what he was going to do. Like, that's where he devised his plan.
Yep.
This is the one part that I will say, you're talking about like keeping this mystery and intrigue and stuff. Like, that's the part that we didn't know what was going on in Man-at-Arms' head. Like, he didn't tell us his plan. So that is the part that they kind of gave us a little bit of mystery on. And I like that because now when you look back on it, you're like, okay, at the point where they realized that Ram Man took this and all this stuff, that he gave it over, Man-at-Arms had already realized what was going on, devised a plan. We just didn't hear about the plan until we saw it come to fruition. So,
yeah, I gotta give you that. At this point, I'll be honest. At this point, I'm always checked out of this episode. I'm recalling it as it goes on. Like, at this point, and then we discover that they've blocked the spell from taking over Ram Man. He actually, that last time, he left of his own volition to make them think he was still under his mind control. And then, fights ensue. He-Man confronts Evelyn, who changes back into Cersei and tries to attempt to mind control He-Man to walk into a pool of lava that she conjures up. And I did like how He-Man wasn't invulnerable to it, but it also wasn't as instant as it was for Ram Man. Like, he's actually able to
fight it off, but it took some work. Yeah.
Right. And then Ram Man is able to take down Evelyn, also knocking the immobilizer into the lava, freeing everybody who was legitimately frozen. And apparently hit Evelyn so hard that he knocked the Cersei power out of her completely. That's my headcanon.
Yes.
That's what it was vulnerable against.
Something else was happening during this battle that I haven't noticed in other episodes. Maybe I just missed it, but I saw a lot of it in this episode where they would have somebody in the background, and I'm guessing that they were trying to make it look like they're in like some sort of dark, like a shadowy type area.
Yes.
But they're not colorizing these people. Like, there's a ton of black and white.
This is what I've been talking about.
And it's like, did they just try to save money by not coloring these folks in? Because once I noticed it, then I'm like, well, they're black and white, and they're black and white, and Ram Man's black and white, and it, like Man-at-Arms at one point is black and white, and then they like switch the view, and then he's in color, but he's in the same spot. He hasn't moved.
Right.
I'm like, yeah.
So I'm assuming it was like, and this is what I forget which episode it was. There was one episode I brought up that I felt it looked really vibrant, and I think it was because they didn't use this technique as much. Whereas Siren Song, it is so glaringly obvious. Like, there's
a ton of black and white, and it's not like the whole screen is black and white. It's not like a scene is black and white. It'll be like everything's colored. The person in front of you is colored, but then there's two people in the back that are black and white. But even the stuff around them in the same area is colored.
So, and typically that's how it's been so far in the series. Usually the people like far in the background or like off from the action are the ones that are just in that shaded tone. But this one was really, I know there's one point where He-Man, I can't remember if it's this battle or the opening battle, but there's like He-Man riding on Battle Cat and everybody around him is shaded, but He-Man and Battle Cat are full color. Like, so yes, this was, that was another thing
jarring for me. I think especially because like if the whole, like, let's say that people were off in the distance and they were in black and white and the stuff around them, like a tree, a grass, whatever, was also in black and white. It'd be like, okay, that stuff is in the background. It's all shaded, whatever. But when you have the tree and the grass and everything in color, but then just the people in black and white that are, in front of that and closer and they should be lit. It just,
Welcome, Curtis.
And it seemed very just lazy to me. Like
this one definitely. This
like
was
we're either trying to cut cost or we're trying to save time, and we're just not going to color these things in.
This was the most jarring episode to date.
Yeah,
I will completely agree with you. But yeah, that's whenever I talk about the shading bothering me, that this is the effect I'm talking about.
gotcha.
So yeah, so luckily everything's fine at the end. Ram Man and Buzz Off kiss and make up. And the Buzz Off ends up earning Ram Man's respect. So.
Yeah. And then the moral.
Yeah.
The moral is make sure you give your friends the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Don't jump to conclusions and make accusations until all the facts are in. So,
which again, great moral. I wish that the episode had led us down that path. Like, and I think that's the biggest thing for me about this episode is I feel like this story has a ton of potential, especially at this point in the series. But it subverts all that by telegraphing everything.
yeah.
So,
Right.
I thought I had another point. It might come to me, but while I'm thinking of that, we'll go ahead and go to our Power Sword ranking. So, as everybody knows by this point, if you're starting with episode 8, I don't know why. Go back and watch all the other episodes. But so 3 Power Swords is the best of the best, an absolutely perfect episode. 2 Power Swords is an above average episode. 1 Power Sword is a good, enjoyable episode. We got the Cosmic Enforcer. That's neither good nor bad, right down the middle. Then we got 1 Havoc Staff is a bad episode. 2 Havoc Staffs is a worse episode. 3 Havoc Staffs, that episode should be banished to Despondos for all eternity. Curtis, Power Sword ranking.
I would love to give this one a 2 Power Swords because I really like what they've done with Ram Man here. They didn't make him just this like dope that you kind of see in the Filmation series. Like they do make him into more of a character that you actually care about, that he is this loyal guy. You know, yeah, maybe he's a little standoffish. Maybe he doesn't welcome people in with open arms. But I feel like they built a much better character around him. I love the tension between him and Buzz Off. I think the fight scene at Grayskull was really cool. I would love to give this 2 stars or 2 swords, but because of the black and white, because of some of the story elements being like just force fed to down our throats and stuff, I gotta take a sword away. So I gotta give it 1. But I really did like the character development part of this. Just not necessarily the story. So,
yeah, I'm not even going to keep it a secret. I'm at a 1 Power Sword as well. I went the opposite way. I really wanted to give this a Cosmic Enforcer. But that opening battle at Grayskull, the animation when it's on is completely on. You know, like we said in the beginning, the Ram Man on the sky sled plummeting off, like, when it's there, it's there. So I still got to give this. It's above a Cosmic Enforcer. I can't sit here and say it's a Cosmic Enforcer. So I got to give it 1 Power Sword. Again, I love the concept. If they had just made it a bit more of a mystery, let us do some thinking ourselves. And if Cersei had been her own character, either been her own character or there had been a reason for Evelyn to have that power that she can't duplicate again. Like, give me a reason why she doesn't just show up 2 weeks from now and try this on somebody else. Because going back to Filmation, it's very in Evelyn's character to, have a disguise and make the widgets believe in her and trick them to get Korodite or whatever. Like, here's the point I was going for that I lost in my train of thought earlier. I would have been okay even with, instead of it being a mind control thing, if Evelyn's just able to woo Ram Man. Like, she comes up with a disguise and like convinces him to help her. And by the end of the episode, he's like, shoot, guys, I betrayed you.
Like she needs this for some legitimate reason or whatever. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he realized, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Like you can do that same storyline, but then have it be where he's like, but he can learn from his lesson. You know, the mind control thing is where it brings it down for me, especially with that being Evelyn doing the mind control.
Yeah.
Like, so it's one of those instances where there's a great story concept here.
Yeah.
It's just in how it was brought out and how it finished.
That's such a power to have.
Yeah.
To just be like 8 episodes in and go, oh yeah, I forgot. I can mind control somebody. Let's do that. And,
Right.
and rather than mind control them all, let's just mind control one.
Yeah.
And see how that goes for us. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
thankfully,
I try to be as open-minded as I can. This is a cartoon. Like, not everything's going to be real. We are in Eternia.
Yep.
But yeah, that hurts. So.
Yeah, and the problem is that this staff has done such a great job of keeping all these through lines.
Yeah.
Like, I can forgive this more in a Filmation style series because you've got that constant reset, and it's like, you know, the syndicated feeling where you're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, we know that happened, but it didn't really happen. But this has been so many through lines here where it's like, no, I can't just ignore that. In the beginning, part 2, when He-Man showed up and punched the rock, Evelyn wasn't like, hang on, let me change into Cersei. Hey, come here. Yeah, you're helping us now.
Right.
Like, you know.
Yeah, like if they had come across some sort of gem or something that allowed them to control somebody's mind or something, that would have been something. But yeah.
Yep. All right, guys. I think that's it for this episode. We want to thank you for joining us. Make sure you check out all those buttons down below. We got to like, we got to share, we got to subscribe. Tell your friends if you're enjoying this series. You got friends who love MYP. Maybe you got friends who haven't seen MYP yet, which is a travesty. You definitely need to get them on there. It is streaming now on Amazon Prime. So you can check that out. The DVDs are out there. But yeah, definitely follow us along, share us around. And next episode, we are going to the ties that bind. So we'll see what that's all about. Quick note, if you are watching on Amazon Prime, oddly enough, when the credits roll for this episode and it says next episode, it will tell you that the next episode is Dragon's Brood, but it will still play
that next time. Yeah.
Well, I want just in case they're going to watch before they listen to us.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so it'll say Dragon's Brood, but if you let it play, it still plays Ties That Bind. So a little weird on that part, but you will get the right episode if you just let Amazon Prime play.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Until next time, go watch some MYP.
Oh, come on.